From Khabib Nurmagomedov to Islam Makhachev, Dagestan has earned a reputation as a hotbed for MMA talent, with several of its fighters becoming champions in both the UFC and beyond. Being from the region, however, doesn't guarantee instant success. Today, we look at the times the UFC's greatest production line had a few defects. Welcome to the INC, and these are 5 of the UFC's worst Dagestani fighters. Unless you're an MMA diehard, you've likely never heard of Khadis Ibragimov. Understandable, given how badly his career played out. There were few signs of Ibragimov's struggles when he signed for the UFC in 2019. A self-confessed nerd, Ibragimov turned down a career in maths to commit to full-time MMA, building an 8-0 record and winning the light heavyweight title for the Russian promotion M1 Global. The 24-year-old made his debut against Dawoon Jung at Fight Night Shenzhen, and looked to make a quick impact by throwing wild haymakers at Jung in the opening stages. Maths genius Ibragimov should have realized that higher output equals more energy, so it came as no surprise when the fighter gassed midway through the first before being submitted by his Korean opponent.
Yeah, there's the tap! Wow! Dawoon Jung!
Ibragimov was given a chance to bounce back against 3,000-year-old Ed Herman. The Ultimate Fighter veteran rolled back the years with a clinch-heavy performance that saw him piece Ibragimov apart with knees and elbows, claiming a unanimous decision and one of the final wins of his career. After being bested by a 20-year veteran, things got worse for Ibragimov against a company newcomer, Roman Dolidze, marking his UFC debut in emphatic fashion.
Oh! That's it! There it is! That's it! He's out!
Ibragimov's final appearance came against Danilo Marques in the opening match of UFC 253. Ibragimov seemed to have little answer for Marquez's wrestling, being taken down several times as the Brazilian threatened with constant choke attempts. Marques won the unanimous decision, and an 0-4 record was enough to give Ibragimov his walking papers. Ibragimov resurfaced in Hardcore FC, an upstart regional promotion based in his home nation of Russia, where he'd win the company's heavyweight title thanks to a trio of stoppage wins. Ibragimov currently holds a 15-6 record, losing his most recent match in February 2025. Dagestani fighters have long held a stigma for having boring fighting styles, but welterweight fighter Ramazan Emeev pushed this trope to extreme levels. Emeev wasn't always a decision merchant. Prior to signing with the UFC, the ATT fighter claimed 10 of his 15 wins in the distance, and had been a 2-time champion with the aforementioned promotion M1, including a win over Bellator title challenger Anatoly Tokov. Emeev formally signed for the UFC in 2017, and became a regular fixture on the company's international cards, picking up wins over Sam Alvey and David Zawada. While Emeev's 5-1 record looked good on paper, the manner in which he won attracted naysayers, with the Russian doing his best work slowing his opponent's pace and wearing them out against the fence. A young Holly Holm took notes. Despite being booked against a succession of action fighters, Emeev continued his neutralizing style with little fanfare, and by the time he faced Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 275, the Russian's notoriety for his dull approach was starting to reach the mainstream.
He's a good competitor, he's well-rounded, I think he's pretty boring, he's pretty flat-footed. I think he's going to try and make it into like a slow contest and drag it out to the end, and my plan is to try and go in there and sting him and finish him.
Emeev started the fight strong with an early takedown and nearly catching JDM with an anaconda choke, only for the Australian to break the hold and start piecing Emeev apart on the feet. With his sole moment of drama over, the ATT fighter didn't put up much resistance.
It's over! 12 in a row for Jack Della Maddalena!
The UFC made the most of the fighter's slip-up. Despite his strong record and representing one of the UFC's largest fan bases, Emeev was one of 4 fighters released from the promotion in August 2022, the JDM fight marking the fighter's first stoppage loss in 8 years. Emeev continued his career in the years after, the 37-year-old signing for the ACA promotion and claiming 2 further wins over the past 2 years, both coming, surprise surprise, by decision. Ruslan Magomedov is a history maker in MMA, although not for the right reasons. On paper, Magomedov had the makings of a top heavyweight prospect, amassing a 9-1 record on the Russian regional scene, including wins over UFC champions Tim Sylvia and Rico Rodriguez. In 2012, Magomedov was given a call to compete in Bellator's Heavyweight Grand Prix, only to withdraw from the contest due to visa issues and replaced by Alexander Volkov, who went on to win the tournament and kickstart his own MMA career. The fallout didn't stop Magomedov securing a UFC contract 2 years later, becoming the first fighter from the region to compete for the promotion. Magomedov soon repaid the company's faith in him, beating Victor Pesta at Fight Night Berlin before decision wins over Josh Copeland and Sean Jordan. In September of 2016, Magomedov was linked to a match with Stefan Struve at UFC 204, but was withdrawn from the bout after testing positive for Ostarine, receiving a 2-year suspension from USADA and paying $10,000 of arbitration costs. 2 months after his ban ended, Magomedov received a second violation after testing positive for multiple anabolic steroids and refusing to comply with USADA's sample collection process. The refusal led to Magomedov receiving his 3rd strike and a lifetime ban from USADA-sanctioned competition, the only man to suffer the indignity since the UFC began working with USADA in 2015. Although his UFC career was over, Magomedov was still allowed to compete in promotions outside of USADA jurisdiction, and 4 years after his last UFC fight, returned to action with ACA. A win over Bellator veteran Dan James left Magomedov hoping he could still have a prosperous career in his homeland. It quickly went sour.
Oh, another shot connects. And a left! He's dropped him again. Dimitri's done it! Wow!
Gadzi Antigulov spent most of his career trying to break the Dagestani stereotype, much to his own detriment. Antigulov earned a UFC contract off a 12-fight winning streak and a light heavyweight title in ACB, but it was the manner in which he did it that caught most attention, with all but 2 of his wins coming in the first round and going the distance just once in his career. And when the Russian repeated the trick on Rogerio de Lima and Joaquim Christensen, the UFC thought they had a potential star on their hands. In July of 2018, Antigulov faced his toughest test yet against Ion Cutelaba at Fight Night Calgary. With both men known for their reckless fighting style, fans anticipated an all-action encounter, and it proved the case as Cutelaba survived an early onslaught before finishing his gassed opponent against the fence.
That'll do it! The Hulk is back! Ion Cutelaba pulls off Kantemor on Antigulov.
The fight proved a marked turn in Antigulov's fortunes, as the master of early finishes now suffered further losses in the fight's opening stanza. A 44-second knockout to Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, and being submitted by Paul Craig on Fight Island. Not the first time the Scotsman claimed a noteworthy win over a Dagestani fighter. Antigulov had a final chance to redeem himself against PFL veteran Maxim Grishin. A more conservative performance saw Antigulov finally make it out of the first round, but his cardio issues came back to haunt him as Grishin claimed his first UFC win in scenes almost identical to his loss to Cutelaba. With age, inactivity, and a 4-fight losing streak, the UFC made the decision to cut ties with Antigulov in December of 2020. Antigulov has gone 1-3 since his UFC release, last fighting in May of 2024, and currently holding a record of 20 wins and 11 losses. Muhammad Mokaev doesn't make this list for his talent, but rather everything else. Born in Dagestan but raised in Wigan, England, Mokaev is one of the most acclaimed amateur fighters of all time, amassing a 23-0 record and extending the run when he turned pro in 2020. The run of form earned Mokaev a match with Cody Durden at Fight Night London, where the youngster took less than a minute to justify the hype.
He's trying to fight the hands, but he gets it down in the first round!
Mokaev continued his form in the years after, wins over Tim Elliott and Alex Perez, earning him a spot in his division's top 10. Things, however, were less rosy behind the scenes. Mokaev had developed critics in the MMA community for his risk-averse fighting style, shooting for takedowns at the first sign of resistance, and showing little attempt to improve his position on the ground. This culminated in March 2024, when Mokaev was passed over for a title fight for Australian fighter Steve Erceg, who was ranked 3 places lower than Mokaev and made his UFC debut less than a year earlier. Makhachev, meanwhile, was booked against former Rizin champion Manel Kape at UFC 304. The build to the fight had been incredibly ill-tempered, amid rumors of a bust-up at the fighter's hotel and nearly coming to blows before the match even began. When the cage doors were eventually locked, fans could look forward to both men releasing their frustrations in a flyweight battle for the ages. They didn't.
There was about 50 security in the cage a second ago, stopping them from getting at each other, and now they're getting paid a handsome fee to actually fight, and they're not.
The fight alternated between both men circling one another and Makhachev constantly fouling his opponent, including attempting to defrock Kape during a second-round takedown. Makhachev claimed the unanimous decision, but attracted further scandal in his post-fight interview, admitting he sucker-punched Kape at the hotel bust-up, as well as insinuating that the UFC told him to strike if he wanted a new contract with the promotion.
They said they're gonna see how I perform. They don't want to see me keep shooting and taking somebody down, but I've done what I could do. They tried to get rid of flyweights before, and they don't want this kind of fight. But if they want me to stand and bank with 30 years old grown men, I have to do what's best for me to win.
The UFC, however, had seen enough. Despite holding the division's longest winning streak and being next in line for a title fight, the UFC chose not to renew Makhachev's contract, releasing him from the promotion with a 13-0 record. Fans were divided on Makhachev's departure, with some celebrating the release of a one-dimensional fighter, while others condemned the UFC for placing entertainment over meritocracy, as well as some pointing out the similarities between Makhachev's claim and Seth Petrozelli's after his win over Kimbo Slice.
That's fucking illegal.
Makhachev resurfaced in December of 2024, claiming a first-round submission for former home promotion Brave FC before a star turn competing for Karate Combat. A few more performances like this, and a UFC return might be around the corner.
Minute 40 left here, and Makhachev is opening up, and oh, and that one is over.
And now, time for a few dishonorable mentions. It took just 2 fights for the UFC to tire of Magomed Gadzhiesulov, being released from the promotion after being the first Dagestani to lose via wall install. Abubakar Nurmagomedov made headlines as the cousin of UFC legend Khabib. Unfortunately, MMA talent isn't genetic.
And he does it! Wow! David Savannah with the submission win!
Many were surprised when Shamil Gaziev was given a main event match in 2024. Let's hope he doesn't embarrass himself.
There's another lousy takedown attempt, if I'm honest. Easily stuffed.
This is the INC. Please like, share, and subscribe. Post your feedback in the comments and donate to our Patreon page for hours of exclusive content.